OBX accounts are public enemy number one, posting spoilers when the show hasn't even gotten lukewarm on the Netflix platform. I didn't even have a chance. Spoiler after spoiler, plot point after plot point, with no warning. With no warning. A lot of people ask me, like, Eden, how'd you get into content creation? Like, how'd you start this? How'd you get into book talk? Baby, the plus button at the bottom of the screen and then record. That's how I started. You need to stop like looking at this as this big entity. How do I get to the end? No, you need to think about starting. You need to think about pressing record. When I started this account like a little over a year ago, I had no followers, 0, 0, 0, 0, and I had lukewarm takes. That's what I brought to the table. I promise you it wasn't anything special. My first video was me talking about rereading the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and I promise you, I'm pretty sure the take I had on that was like so basic. It was not anything special. Like, I promise you that. I promise you that. I promise you that. There's been a lot of growth, but the beginning, I had nothing to give. And people still watched. So period. You just gotta hit plus and record. Yes. I'm in the book talk space. And so the reason why I'm talking about this is because there's been a lot of discourse around book talk and politics and all of this stuff. But I really want to address this issue that people are having with the whole, why can't we be friends even though we have political disagreements? Hear me out. I'm a Black woman, right? So I believe that white privilege exists in all avenues of life. I cannot be friends with somebody that does not understand that white privilege exists, because if we find ourselves in a situation, whether we're hanging out or literally whatever it is, right, where you cannot clock that something has been done to me, I cannot feel safe around you. When we say like safety, these are the kinds of things that we mean. So I'm done.
I need to be conserving my energy because I work today and some of my coworkers casually let slip that they're homophobic. So I need to be storing energy for whatever that is. But I need to say this first because I worked in a school, so I know it won't just happen. If you're an educator, if you work in a school right now and you're hearing these little boys come to school and say, your body, my choice, you need to shut that shit down. You need to back whatever that girl does to him next. Whoops, she was right. If she hits him, you better back her the whole way. You better be at every single meeting about her suspension. If a kid comes to you and tells you that somebody's saying your body, my choice, you need to treat that like the actual instance of sexual harassment and threat of potential assault that it is. No more of this laughing it off, because I've seen middle school male teachers do this in particular. No more laughing it off. Boys are not just being boys. They're being dangerous fascists. So step up.
I don't mean to alarm anyone, but if you thought that the entertainment industry was in dire straits before Trump won the election, I have some really bad news. Obviously, the fallout from this election is going to be incredibly widespread, and we have no way of knowing the extent of which this is going to affect us in every aspect of our life. There are the few obvious ways, but you know, it's going to be bad in a lot of ways. And one of the ways is the corporatization of media and late stage capitalism completely destroying art. If you don't know, on Wednesday, the Motion Picture Association, one of the largest groups of studios in Hollywood, publicly congratulated Trump on his victory. They said that we can't wait to work with you. We make so much money. We hire this many people. And by the way, love the fact that the electoral process is totally safe with you, champ. It wasn't great. And then obviously Jeff Bezos prevented the Washington Post from running an endorsement of Kamala Harris, and instead congratulated Donald Trump also publicly on his victory, just like he did in 2016. Didn't wish anyone a victory and congrats on their victory in 2020, strangely. But I don't know, I feel like there's obviously some conversation about like what The Boys is gonna look like next season, and I feel like the assumption that our media is going to remain pure and able to continue to offer biting critique of those in power is an optimistic way to look at things. I don't think there's like totally reason to give up hope. I mean, some of the best art in the world has been made under some of the most devastating circumstances. But I do think that with the increase in consolidation. I mean, already David Zaslav tweeted about how hopefully the Trump administration will be favorable to the necessary, I can't remember how he phrased them, but essentially mergers of huge media groups, which is not a good thing. So I think we all need to be aware of the ways that our media is about to become a whole lot more sanitized. And I just keep thinking about the Hollywood strikes and AI, and that was such an important movement for workers' rights. And I'm worried that the impact is going to be very short-lived, because I don't think that there's going to be any regulations for AI, and I think that the industry is going to keep shrinking and cutting out humans. There's an administration that's going to be incredibly friendly, pro-corporate bullshit, very anti-worker, especially a worker in the arts. So, I don't love that. I am hopeful that we're going to get a new indie revival from people who are making art and posting it on the internet. I know that a lot of film purists think that's laughable. But interesting about the last indie revival is that it was in large part due to Harvey Weinstein and Miramax footing the bill because they wanted awards. It wasn't like it was some altruistic, incredible organic thing. There are outliers of Robert Rodriguez, who made a movie with $5,000 and took Sundance by storm. That's super cool. It never happens anymore, and it was an outlier then, and it's an outlier now. So I think that a lot of great art, we're gonna have to rely on ourselves, just like everything else coming up. And I think the distribution of that art is hopefully gonna remain accessible. I do worry about our ability to communicate with each other and have I think algorithmic based platforms might be harder. I do think TikTok is probably pretty cooked. I think this app may be on its last legs. Maybe not. But anyways, yeah, I think that this is something that we just should start talking about and thinking about, because there are so many ways and much more immediately pressing and horrifying ways. I don't mean to diminish the obvious horrors of our new reality, but this is just something that I think propaganda can be incredibly stealthy, and we already live in a world where media literacy is rare. And I think we just need to be aware of the fact that we are probably, I don't know, I see people comparing, making Handmaid's Tales comparisons, which is a little bit cringe, obviously, but I think, if you want to look to what a realistic version of our new reality is going to look like, it's going to look a lot more like something like V for Vendetta, where the show keeps going. They're not gonna openly admit that they're subjugating us. They want to keep living in this, and entertainment is a huge part of keeping people distracted and docile. So I just think we need to be, vigilant in how we consume it, now more so than ever. Anyways, I don't know when the fuck I'm going to be able to get back to your regularly scheduled programming, speaking of which. I had taken a little bit of time with this one.
Episode of Modern Family where Cam sneaks behind Mitchell's back for the 1000th time, and this time it's specifically to teach Lily how to be a clown, because he's decided that Lily must be a clown and follow in his footsteps and be a clown, even though he A, knows that Mitchell really doesn't like clowns very much, and B, is not asking Lily whether or not she wants to be a clown. So then Cam decides that he has to force Mitchell into this. Well, I have this tiny little wine glass trash can, so least it's safe in there. He is teaching Lily all these ways to be a clown, and he's like, Lily's enjoying it, Mitchell. How dare you not enjoy that Lily is enjoying it? And all the while, then they're doing a show together, and Lily, every single time that Mitchell is not laughing at the regular clown stuff, that really isn't that funny. And also, by the way, I'm terrified of clowns. I think they're so scary. But anyways, so he is doing all the regular clown stuff, and Lily is like, wow, my other dad's not laughing. I guess I'm going to start basically abusing my father with it, and hitting him with as much pain as possible, because that's the only way that Mitchell laughed, because Mitchell's a slapstick guy, obviously. And Cam was like, Lily, this is not the clown way, this is not the clown way, and Lily keeps going and going and going, and then Mitchell pulls her aside and is like, okay, what's going on here? Or Lily pulls him aside because Lily's emotionally more mature than both of her parents, but and Lily goes, I don't want to be a clown. I hate being a clown. It's the worst. I thought hitting Dad more would help. And it didn't. So then Lily finally has to come clean to her dad because Mitchell is like, if we just tell your dad the truth, it'll all be fine. So Mitchell is trying to tell Cam that Lily does not want to be a clown. And Cam is acting like Mitchell is a liar and just doesn't want Lily to be a clown herself. And that Lily loves it and it's so much fun for Lily. And then Lily has to lie to her father and do the best emotional manipulation in the entire show, honestly. And she's like, you're the best clown in the entire world. And it hurts so much having to be a clown next to you when you're just killing it with your clown ways, being the best clown that's ever existed. And you're so funny and everyone likes you so much more as a clown than they'll ever like me. And I just can't do it. So she's sucking up to Cam on all of his favorite things, which is being a clown, so that she can get out of being a clown because she hates it, because Cam cannot hear the actual truth, which is that his daughter does not like being a clown. Meanwhile, if this happened in reverse, and Mitchell were A, lying to Cam about where he was taking Lily every day, B, teaching Lily to do lawyer things, which he doesn't, by the way. Like, that's something that doesn't happen in the show, and I'm sure that Mitchell would actually love for his daughter to want to be a lawyer. And C, forcing Cam to watch Lily give a speech at the end about all of this. Mitchell would understand at the end if his daughter did not want to be a clown. Cam has no possible ability to understand what his daughter does and does not want, because he only likes Lily when she acts like an extension of Cam, which drives me insane. I have the hiccups. Okay, goodbye.
In Modern Family, Alex dates the firefighter, the super hot firefighter, played by the guy from Home Economics, whose name I should have looked up before this because now I'm forgetting his name for some reason. But anyway, she dates the super hot firefighter, and at first Alex doesn't particularly like him. She thinks that he's really hot. She thinks that they have really good, chemistry, but she's not actually looking to date him as a person. She is in fact very embarrassed by him because he's not nearly as intelligent as she is. And meanwhile, while Alex is dating the super hot firefighter who is not very intelligent, Haley is dating Alex's #1 crush, her professor, Arvin, who we hate. Arvin's just the worst. Honestly, he's one of the worst characters ever introduced onto the show, and that's really saying something, because you know what character I absolutely hate? Jane Krakowski's character. I don't have a stirry thingy. Shoot, give me 2 seconds. So Haley is dating Alex's dream guy, Arvin, for some reason. And sure, Arvin's, very cute. Actually, the actor who plays him is very cute and he's very charming, which is why he gives, that great speech to Haley, which I actually liked and would have absolutely fallen for. And sure, he's a genius, which is why Alex has nothing for him. But do I actually think that Alex should date a genius? No, I think that Alex should date someone exactly like the hot firefighter, who, again, I literally stopped filming and then still didn't look up his name. What's wrong with me? Anyways, so Alex starts dating this firefighter, and she, is... What's happening? So Alex is dating this firefighter, but when she's dating this firefighter, she's trying to hide him. She's trying to hide the fact that she's dating this dum-dum, because it's embarrassing, especially considering the fact that Haley, her sister, is dating, again, her dream man. But then they all end up having dinner with the parents, and Alex is super embarrassed by the fact that she's having dinner with the parents when Arvin is, there being a genius with, 3 separate doctorates and a bunch of master's degrees and, so many rewards or awards. And then her hot firefighter just is math. But the thing that I love about this is that it's actually a learning moment for Alex. Alex dates this guy. It's a learning moment because she is treating him like he's dumb, and he's letting her for a while, and then finally he calls her out and he's like, you can't treat me like I'm not as dumb as you are acting as I am, A, and B, I really like you as a person, and I think that you could really like me as a person if you would get off your high horse. I mean, that's not exactly what he said at all, but it's a really beautiful moment because then Alex starts actually seeing him as more of a person. Oh wait, no, he didn't give that moment. He did not give that moment. I don't know why in my head I put it as him giving her that moment. No, Haley calls Alex out. Haley is like, why are you treating your boyfriend like you're embarrassed of him and like he's the dumbest person you've ever met? Arvin doesn't do that to me. Arvin doesn't make me feel embarrassed for the entirety of our relationship. That's really shitty of you. Stop doing that, which is actually a really great sisters moment and one of my favorite sisters moments
moments in the series, so I don't know why I decided to make it about him, like his moment, because it is about him, but it's not his moment to shine with Alex. And then they become this really delightful couple. Alex becomes more sexually adventurous. She becomes more sure of herself as a human being. And does she rub it in people's faces too much? Yes. Which is why people are always like, ugh, Alex being sexual, gross, because Alex has always been a very non-sexual being until she becomes a sexual being, which is a shocking thing to a family. So I do understand to a certain extent why everyone's like, ooh, too much information too fast, because I have been in Alex's shoes on that, and honestly, the too much around everyone else I get. 10 years from now, she'll be looking back going, I can't believe I did that to try and prove that I'm an adult now. But she dates this guy, and they like each other, and he continues dating her while she's in Alaska, and he continues dating her while she has a better job than him, and he just likes her, and she at one point thinks he's going to propose to her, and she's like, Mom, you have to stop the proposal, I am not ready to get married yet. And it ends up being that he's not trying to propose to her, he's literally trying to, like, cut a business deal with her genius, like, parents who have a lot of money, or have a decent amount of money to, like, support, like, this business idea for pulling up pants that he has. That actually isn't the worst idea in the world situations. And Alex gets mad at him for not proposing. He's like, I know you're not ready. It's okay. I can wait for you. Like, I can wait. If you want me to propose, I'll propose right now, but I don't think you're ready yet. I'm good with that. I am good until you are ready to propose. And then they just keep going, and it keeps being a good relationship, and then they ruin it. They absolutely destroy it. They continue, like, they just make it. I'm so mad. I'm so mad because it makes no sense why they broke up, because Alex and him have been texting. He had been off on, like, doing wildfire stuff with firefighter hoses, and one day he texts her and he's like, yeah, like, I'm texting you from this phone. So Alex therefore thinks that she should be texting him from that phone continuously. So she does. And then the person on that end of the phone is like, send boobs or something. So Alex does, because she's like, oh, we're being adventurous. Oh, we're being super adventurous. And he's like, more. So on Valentine's Day, Alex is like, I don't mind doing that stuff. I actually think it's kind of, like, fun and neat. But, like, could you use more language? Could you, like, text a bit more? Like, could you give me something? And he gets so mad at her for thinking that the creepy guy on the other end of the phone, who's a creep, had the wildfires, is the one texting her, like, is him texting her and not the creepy guy, that he walks away from her on their Valentine's Day dinner at a crappy restaurant, by the way. Like, I can't believe that's where he was taking her for Valentine's Day, and just leaves her there. And it's so unrealistic, because if you've ever been in Alex's shoes, it doesn't matter how good the talk is in person, the minute that they try to get the fun pics, they stop using real words, okay? They do. It's like, more, show me more, that's so good, baby. And so Alex was just like, ah, yes, that makes perfect sense to me. She probably even asked Haley about it and was like, is this normal? And Haley was probably like, yeah, it's normal. That's exactly what they do. Because it is exactly what most men do in that situation. I'm sharing so much information right now. I'm sharing so much. So he, like, gets mad at her for this thing that actually, like, I could fully believe that that's exactly the type of stuff that he's texting. And B, it's a complete misunderstanding trope where I could believe it being a misunderstanding, A, but B, it's one that would be so easily resolved, because this is a guy who's, like, super obsessed with Alex and super likes her and super wants to be with her forever. Like, he has forever written in those eyes. And instead of saying forever, instead of being like, you know what, we can get past this, just know it's not me from now on. Instead of any of that, he just walks away from her forever on Valentine's Day. And I'm like, he would never do that. The hot firefighter would never do that. And then Alex dates Arvin. And that's how they end the show, with her fucking her professor. I'm not bitter. It's fine. I'm not bitter. It doesn't haunt me for the rest of my days that she ends up with a guy who treated her sister like garbage, instead of the guy who was really treating her like a queen until they ruined him in one quick episode because he was going to do what I'm assuming was home economics. And I'm also definitely not super bitter that they canceled home economics for no reason. I'm not bitter. I'm gonna go make dinner now. Instant Pot activate. Bye. You know how in The Princess Bride, Humperdinck is just kind of the worst character ever written? Like, he is. He is one of the worst characters that ever, like, graces the screen. He is considered the world's best hunter, and he is considered also the handsomest prince in the world. That's like literally the tagline of the original book. The original book says, what if the handsomest prince in the world married the most beautiful, what if the most beautiful woman in the world married the handsomest prince in the world, and he ended up being a son of a bitch. And that is what Humperdinck is. That is what Humperdinck is supposed to be. Today I'm too lazy to try and rip this and have the 5-minute video of me trying to rip my fiber packet, because this is fiber, and then having people see that embarrassment every day. So instead I cut it open like an adult. That will not happen every day. My sisters go missing more than anything else in this household, but it'll happen today. So Prince Humperdinck is a hunter first and foremost. He wasn't really prepared to be a king. He was really hoping that his father would be the king for a much longer period of time. Oh, I actually have a straw today, so I don't have to use the chopsticks. So they're here. Chopsticks. Chop, 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 chop. They came with a wok that I accidentally ruined, but the chopsticks survived, and they have this little, they have this string. They're strung together. I love it, because you can use them as a weapon. If you are bored, you can look at my Camp Half-Blood Antics playlist, and you will see me try to use them as a weapon back when I had red hair. Prince Humperdinck, he has to become basically the king, while his father just continues like losing his mind, because the king in The Princess Diary, or not The Princess Diaries, in The Princess Bride, is slowly but surely losing his mind. He is unwell. Everyone knows it. The queen speaks for him, and she does like a decent job of at least pretending to speak for him. She translates things for him, and a lot of the time you can't tell if she can actually speak his language or if she's just pretending, and it doesn't really matter to the king, because the king is gone. He's gone. He's off his rocker. He's no longer there. That is a large part of the story. So Prince Humperdinck, when he finds out that his father is dying, like it's coming real fast, he goes, ah crap, I am going to have to find a wife. And the first woman that he is going to marry is the most fabulous woman in all of Europe at the time. And what is she best known for? Her hats. And what does it turn out that the reason that she has all the hats is? It's not the Blair Waldorf, they're her signature style thing. No, it's actually that she is going bald. And when I say going bald, I mean she is completely bald. So there's a really unfortunate gust of wind that blows off her hat in the middle of a dinner with the prince and her and the count, or the duke, the count, he's a count, Count Rugen, and the count's wife, who's the actual most fabulous woman in the world. She's not particularly pretty, but boy, does she dress like the reason high fashion exists is because of this woman. And so the prince is like meeting her, the hat blows off, the prince gets so mad that this woman gets chased out of the kingdom because he can't marry a bald woman. He can't have a bald wife. It is bad for his image. So instead, Count Rugen, whose name is actually lost in the book, he's just called the Count, but in the movies they call him Count Rugen. But anyways, Count Rugen is like, oh, I actually know someone. She was like, I don't know, she was fine when I saw her last, but like, there's been room for improvement. There's been time to grow. I think that she might be it. By this time, Buttercup has literally grown to be the most beautiful woman in the entire world, because first she was beautiful because she realized that she was married to Wesley, or not married to Wesley, but in love with Wesley, and the love like was just emanating through her pores. And then Wesley died, and her beauty developed even further, developed even more, so she became a cold beauty because she has known great love and she has lost great love, so she knows what it is to lose and have great love, so that her beauty just surpasses everyone else in the entire world. So the count takes the prince to go see Buttercup, and she's literally just taking the milk from like the day home because her parents have the 3rd or 4th best cow farm in all of their area, which is not saying much because there are 4 cow farms in that area. They suck. No one likes their milk. It's just what's there. I need a drink of coffee. So the prince goes and he proposes to her, and she's like, nah, bruh. And he's like, you either marry me or you die. And she's like, kill me then, whatever. And he's like, okay, marry me or die. And she's like, I will never love you, just kill me. And he goes, why would you think that love has anything to do with marriage? And she's like, oh, I don't have to love you, then whatever, like, let's get married. So then they start training her to be a princess. And all the while they're training her to be a princess, and here comes my part, here comes my point, here comes my reasoning. The prince is not training to be, I'm pretty sure this is still going, but it told me that my battery's running low, so 1 second. Okay, I just wanted to make sure it was still filming. We'll see. the prince is not training to be a king. No, the prince is planning for when he is king. He's not training for anything. He's not doing any of that. He is planning for when he is king. Because what's he gonna do when he is king? He's going to start a war. Now, here's where my real point comes in, okay? Because Prince Humperdinck does a lot of things while he has taken over the crown, even though he's not technically king yet. And a big one is he fires Miracle Max. Miracle Max is a miracle worker. He is the doctor of this time period. And the prince fires him because he's not making his father better well enough. So he fires the singular medicine man in the area, sends him off, hires somebody who will listen to him more, who will listen to him better. It doesn't matter if he's good at what he does, it matters if he listens to him. The prince also, all the while, is thinking of ways that he can start wars. Why does he want to start wars? To be better known. Not really even to be the most powerful man in the world, that he knows that's like a part of what will happen when he like wins all these wars. No, he just wants to fight wars. He wants to have people know that he's a big strong man who fights wars. That's also why he's the best hunter in the world. He can hunt any animal, and he does. He literally has in the books, this is a really important part. In the movie, that doesn't happen, but in the book, this happens. So you know when Wesley gets kidnapped and he goes down to like the torture chamber in the tree, that's actually the prince's zoo. It's an underground society type place, but it's not really a society because only the prince and the duke and the albino know about it. But it is a place where the prince has collected every single dangerous animal that exists in the universe, and he just goes down there and he hunts them because he thinks it's fun. That's his thing. That's his vibe. That's what he likes to do. He likes to kill, okay? So he goes down there and he hunts and he kills, and his best friend Count Rugen is obsessed with pain and the concept of pain and why pain is important, and he likes to study pain, so Count Rugen helps out with all this. And the albino is just there because what else can the albino do in this society than work for people who treat him like he is subhuman? So that all happens, okay? The prince wants this war to happen more than anything else. So why is he marrying Buttercup? Not because she's the most beautiful woman in the world. I mean, yes, because she's the most beautiful woman in the world, but not to have a queen, to have a war. Because his entire plan is that he is going to have her get kidnapped. He is going to have her get murdered during that kidnap, and he is going to blame Gilder. And when he blames Gilder, he can go to war with Gilder, and he can win that war, and he can be considered the most powerful, greatest man ever. Look at him, he's so strong. Look at him, he's so cool. So he does that. Buttercup lives. The prince threatens to kill Wesley. Buttercup goes with the prince. And the prince is like, this is even better. Now people love her. Now people think she's great. And she survived. So not only do I have the opportunity to go to war with them anyways, but I'm gonna make that so it seems like they kill her on our wedding night. And then the people will be even more upset. And then the war will be even bigger and better and greater. And everyone will praise me for this war. So he hires these muscle men to just follow him around and do his bidding and do whatever he needs to make sure that it seems like he's protecting his bride at all costs. But you can't protect a bride from the person who wants to kill her if that person is yourself. So he's doing all this stuff, and he hires all these muscle men, and he's like, ha 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 ha, no one can get to me. And then they do, okay? And then they do. Because Wesley, even though he has been literally murdered by the prince because he made the prince feel impotent, has been brought back to life by Miracle Max, because Miracle Max hates the prince so much for what he has done to his career and his image and his concept of being and his job that he brings Wesley back to life to ruin the prince's life. Fezzik and Inigo also are helping with that, because Inigo knows now that the six-figure man is actually Count Rugen, because Count Rugen is a guy who likes to rip people off. That's an entirely different story for an entirely different time. Somebody asked me about that. Anyways, this is a really long video. I'm really depressed right now. I seem really energetic and happy, but I don't feel something right now because I'm so depressed. Unless I feel something, I can't feel something until I feel something. So right now I made a video to feel something. And the something is that technically in these books, Prince Humperdinck never lost. We never get to see him lose. He goes after Wesley and Buttercup for the rest of their days. But Prince Humperdinck, who is a guy who's so stuck up his own ass and so in his head and so constantly obsessed with the concept of power, has made it so many people are against him that even while he's winning, he is actively losing. He's so obsessed with his own image that he constantly makes himself fail. Do with that what you will. I'm really upset. Okay, bye. At a Modern Family where Phil's college sweetheart comes for a visit and Claire's like, oh, she wants you bad. And Claire's like reading their messages together because Phil's letting her. She's not like just snooping. And she like starts reading it in a sexual way and she's like, how are you, Phil? And all that jazz. And Phil's like, that's not how it is at all. We're just friends, blah, blah, blah. And then Judy Greer, who is the college sweetheart, ends up coming over and Phil is like, see, Claire, see, Judy is completely normal. I don't know what her actual name in the show is, so we're just gonna call her Judy. Judy is completely normal and Judy has no interest in me. And Claire ends up being like, oh my God, I'm so silly. I'm the crazy wife. I'm the crazy girlfriend. Gee, I wonder why I am. And it's like, oh, could it be because your husband is constantly trying to cheat on you continuously forever? Because that would be my guess. You know, it would be my guess. It would be. But I digress. So anyways, Judy Greer ends up like trying to come on to Phil and she's like, Phil, how are you? Phil, I've been like talking to you for weeks and it's like, you know, how are you, Phil? And like, you know, she's doing the same sexual thing that Claire was doing and Phil's like, how are these the same conversations? Because I didn't think that we were having the conversation that we end up having. But anyways, the entire time, Phil ends up like being proven wrong and Judy Greer wants him so bad and Claire ends up being proven right. But like, does Claire get to really know that she was proven right? Not really. But it turns out, Judy Greer and Phil were dating at the same time that Phil was dating Claire. Phil was in fact cheating on Claire with Judy Greer and he went on a vacation with Judy Greer and the entire way that they find this out is because of a picture of Phil with Judy Greer when Phil has a broken arm. And Claire's like, you had that broken arm when we were together. You had that broken arm when we were exclusive. You had that broken arm when we were exclusive, Phil. Why were you still with her? And I believe, I haven't watched this episode in a hot second, so I could be completely wrong, but I'm pretty sure that Phil had actually been trying to break up with Claire at that time too, or break up with Judy Greer at the time. He was trying to break up with one of them, okay? He was trying to break up with one of them, and he was doing it wrong because he doesn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. And so this is actually one of my favorite Phil episodes because it's like him being a loyal husband or trying to be a loyal husband, but we first and foremost find out that he was not a loyal husband in the beginning of the relationship, which like no surprise there. But B, we see Phil actively choosing Claire the entire episode without mocking her very much, which I do enjoy very much. But the thing that bothers me about this episode, and I really like this episode and I would rewatch it before I talked about it, but I saw those comments and I was like, ooh, I really want to discuss that. But like, the thing that bothers me about this episode is that we never really see this loyalty from Phil again. We are never given the opportunity because Phil is always constantly flirting. Phil is always constantly flirting with other women who are not his wife and putting down his wife continuously whenever he gets the opportunity, unless someone reminds Phil that his wife is like the hottest woman he's anyone's ever seen. She's so hot, she's so gorgeous, she's so amazing. Like Julie Bowen is like, oh, awooga. Like, I was gonna make it with the sound effects, but then I didn't, and then I wimped out. But anyways, the point is that Phil never gets reminded of that unless he has it, like, threatened to be taken away somehow. But my biggest point here is that this piece of the episode feels... I don't know how to put this. I lost my point. My point was, like, I was so proud of this point before I started filming, but now I kind of lost it. But it doesn't feel like a real Phil episode because he is given this chance to go for a woman who, like, is super into him and he doesn't, which, like, good. Love that. Wish we saw it more. That other women were coming on to Phil and Phil is actively trying to be like, no. Instead of Phil being like, oh, hi, would you like to see a magic trick? Look at this magic trick. Can I hug you really quickly? I'm gonna really squeeze into your chest area because I'm just a nice guy. Oh, I'm so silly, goofy. I'm so nice. Like, I would never actually do anything to make you uncomfortable, but like, hi, because that's the Phil way. But like, this episode feels like it could have been like a turning point for Phil and Claire's relationship, for the way Phil sees Claire, for the way Claire sees Phil, and also would be a really good time for them to have talked about why Claire even thought that their texting would be that way, because she wasn't blaming Phil about it at all. She wasn't like, oh, Phil, like, you're considering cheating on me. She was like, oh, Phil, this woman wants you, Phil. And all the while, we continuously see that it's always Phil who wants the other woman, and the other woman, like, ignore him because he's a weird man. And I don't know. I feel like there could have been more done with this concept and this topic, and I wish we had gotten to see more about it. And also, I would just like to say that Judy Greer is such a talented actress. I love her so much. Okay, bye. I'm putting my computer away for the weekend, my work computer that is, and I am here to tell you about why I love Jake and Amy Peralta so much in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, because tell me how this man goes out of his way to make sure that Amy has the best life possible whenever he is given even the slightest opportunity. Tell me why you're basically on Snapchat with me, okay? This is how I would be Snapchatting my friend Shy. Hi, Shy. But instead I'm Snapchatting all of you because Shy is getting married this weekend. Tell me why Jake Peralta is doing... It's the wedding episode, and ironically, I'm not Snapchatting my friend Shy this entire thing because she's getting married tomorrow. That makes perfect sense. It's the wedding episode, and Jake is actively just doing everything that he can to make sure that Amy's okay and to make sure that she's having the best time, including but not limited to sending Hitchcock and Scully away to make sure that they're just not bothering her, and saying, Rosa, use force when you get this veil cleaned, and solving all of her problems and not freaking out at all until he has to because there's a bomb threat. I can't remember why there was a bomb threat. I paused so I could talk about this because it was very, very important, obviously. Oh, I'm so sorry. Was I on your tail? I was on your tail. I'm so sorry. You're just so soft. I didn't realize I was on your tail. Lay back down. Lay back down. We're cuddling. But Jake Peralta loves Amy Santiago so much because the entire previous episode was him being like, oh, you go do police work. I'll take care of everything on our wedding day. For our, wedding plans. And he does such a good job with it because you know what? He loves his wife. Good girl getting down on your own. She's so good. She's so perfect. Anyways, thank you. Goodbye.
In Modern Family, how Claire is constantly desexualized as the show goes on, so she becomes a very asexual type of being in spite of the fact that she used to be written as, and when I say written as, I mean her past was written to have been a very sexual time for her. She was written to kind of be a slut, but we're not gonna say the term slut as if it's a bad thing, which is why I went like this, because I was implying that it was a bad thing for it to have happened, and it's not. Sleep with as many people as you want. Why do blah blah blah. Anyways, so Claire is written to be this character who once was very sexual and then stopped being very sexual and started just being a mother. When she became a mother, she started wearing very specifically these outfits that are not very sexual, that are not showing her off as much. It's just like a t-shirt and a plaid plaid fleece on top all the time. That's her uniform. That is her outfit until she of course starts working in business, which I love. I think it's great. I love when she starts going back to work. But anyways, I bring up the point. The point of this is that Claire is constantly desexualized, and when I discuss that, people go, she's really sexy in the Valentine's Day episodes. She's really sexy in the she's so sexy in the Valentine's Day episodes. Don't you understand how sexy she is in the Valentine's Day episodes? She's not being Claire in the Valentine's Day episodes. She's not Claire. Her name is literally Juliana or whatever. She's going on an emotional affair kind of with a completely different guy named Clyde Bixby. And yes, they're just role-playing, but why is it that the only time that Claire Dunphy gets to be a super sexual, super sexy human being is when she is role-playing? And notice how the minute that she and her husband find other people in the wild, while they're role-playing, something embarrassing and awful tends to happen to her, and she is the one that has to be embarrassed, and she is the one that has to feel embarrassed for the fact that she had wanted to be sexual. In the very first time, maybe the very first time, and one of the times where she is being Juliana, she wears a trench coat and nothing else. And what happens? She gets the coat where it's the only piece of clothing she has on, caught in an escalator, and everyone that she and Phil know, including her father, including her stepmother, including her kids' teachers, including the really judgy neighbors, all see them and try to help them, while Claire just actively goes, please go away. Please stop trying to please stop trying to help me. Go away. I
don't want to be a part of this. And she's embarrassed over and over and over and over again. And you know who doesn't get embarrassed in that entire time period? Phil. You know who ends up saving Claire from this entire thing? Gloria. You know who gets to get really, really interested in this entire thing because Gloria is saving Claire? Phil. Why? Because Gloria finds a way to sneak Claire into a completely different outfit so that she has been saved. It's a really great, like, Gloria moment. Gloria is in the end the savior of the episode, but the minute that Claire gets turned back into Claire, what happens? She ends up having to be sorry that she's ever been sexy again. And it happens continuously. Even in the episode where Phil realizes that his obsession with Juliana is actually decidedly unhealthy because it's making him uninterested in his wife as a person. He's only interested in Juliana. He starts treating Juliana like she's a sex object, and he is like, I have to go into my home. I have to be in my home. You can't come in here. And he locks Claire out of their house because he's separated Juliana and Claire so much that he locks her out of her own home because Claire couldn't possibly be the sexual version of this being that she created, that she wrote to try and give a fun time to their very stagnant Valentine's days up until that point. Anytime Claire tries to be sexy, she gets punished. I'm gonna say it one more time. Anytime Claire tries to be sexy, she gets punished. Including in my favorite episode where Claire ends up trying to be sexy because Phil has the super duper sexy house that he's trying to sell, and everyone in the family is like breaking in and sneaking into the house to use the super duper sexy house for their own means and their own opportunities, including but not limited to Phil himself, who is going there to use his like AI camera, like lens video game things, alternate reality programming stuff, and he's using that, and everyone else is sneaking around him because he can't hear them because he's just in this house like moving around trying to be in the alternate reality stuff. And Claire thinks that he had been inviting her over there to role play, so she dresses in a super sexy cosplay outfit, and she looks amazing. I would like to make that clear. And she goes to the house, and everyone else is there. I don't remember if they actually catch each other, but what she does see is that Phil had actually been talking about how he was super excited to play a video game, not possibly hang out with her. And it's the one time that Phil goes, I don't know what this is, but whatever mistake happened to make this happen, I'm really happy. And it's my favorite Phil moment, and I could go much further into it because I think Phil should be more like that more often. But Claire still ends up kind of being punished for trying to be sexy because she figures out that Phil hadn't actually meant that he wanted to be with her in that time period at all. Claire gets punished whenever she's trying to be a sexual being. Continuously. She has to become a completely different person to be sexualized in this show, which was my point, and that is the point that I stand with, and I thank you. Okay, goodbye.
The use of physical appearances and prettiness in the Hunger Games I think is really interesting because it's one of the biggest things that clues you into the fact that you never actually leave the arena. The games are the whole country. Demonstrate that even outside of the arena, you still have to play the social games of the Capitol. Capitol weaponizes things like beauty, charm, and charisma in order to manipulate people. And for people like Finnick Odair, that becomes a blessing and a curse. Finnick was able to use his beauty and charm as a tool in the games in order to get sponsors and endear himself to Capitol audiences. Once he wins, that attractiveness becomes something that the Capitol is able to exploit. He's also, again, able to use that to his advantage by doing things in exchange for secrets. And I think it's really important when addressing all of these themes of what people in the Hunger Games owe to each other, like when Thresh and Katniss are talking about what they owe each other in the arena. For a lot of these people in the districts, everything except for their physical selves has been taken from them. So a lot of the time, the only thing they have in exchange for goods and services is their physical self. And a lot of the people, specifically in District 12, who are put in the position of having to do that for their own survival are children. And there were specific kinds of people that were favored by the people soliciting those services. Like, your physical qualities are pretty much the only thing that is going to be able to leverage you into any position of privilege in the district. I use the term privilege extremely loosely here. But you also see it in Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, the way that Coriolanus uses his appearance to gain leverage. He does everything in his power not to look poor and to keep up the facade that he is super, super rich the whole time. You see him interacting with all of his classmates who are most likely doing the exact same thing, but he can't tell. Like, none of them are putting their most authentic foot forward, even remotely. Because the only thing that matters to them is keeping up their appearances so that they can gain power. Because that's all part of the game. If someone who is supposed to represent the Capitol doesn't fit that very specific physical mold that they want them to fill, they will do whatever they need in order to make that person fit the mold so that they can put an attractive foot forward for the Capitol citizens to embody. Which is why they tried to give Katniss a boob job when she was 16 years old, and Haymitch told them no, because he's a good person. All the discourse about the Ned's Declassified podcast has made me think about the beginning of all of the former Child Star podcasts, because I've been seeing a lot of people complain about them for a while. But when they first started, we were all really excited about them. And I was thinking back and I was like, well, they pretty much all started during lockdown, when literally none of us could go anywhere, including actors. So it was, first of all, a million times more understandable that they would be doing this. There wasn't much to do, and it wasn't like they could go and act in new things. And up to a point, it is really fun to hear all of these stories that we had never heard before. After a while, you realize that the show they were on only ran for like 3 or 4 seasons. So like 3 or 4 years maybe. And the podcast that they've made about their time on the show has been running for like 5 years now. Ned's Declassified ran for 53 episodes. The podcast about Ned's Declassified has been running for 114 episodes. Every episode of Ned's Declassified was about 20 minutes long. Every episode of the Ned's Declassified podcast is about an hour. There is nothing left to talk about. You could have watched the whole show almost 3 times. Please start talking about something else. You are not crazy. I thought the exact same thing until I started seeing all of the discussion about whether or not Finnick could be considered a career. And it has challenged me to open my mind to more theories that I was previously closed off to, because I understand that a lot of people find evidence in different parts of the text than I do. At first, when I heard somebody say Finnick isn't a career, I was like, how could he not be a career? That doesn't make any sense. But in watching videos from my mutuals about what could and couldn't make Finnick into a career, I learned that the rules are maybe not as black and white as I previously thought, because I got evidence from different passages in the books than they did. And a similar thing happened a few months ago when I first introduced my personal theory about the Hunger Games readings being rigged. A lot of people were immediately put off by that because they interpreted that as me saying Katniss was a chosen one, and that everything was rigged against her specifically. Even though that's not what I was saying at all, I was discussing the general reaping process and how I believe that even the way it is specifically described in the books makes it rigged. Because even if the Tesserae system works exactly as described in the books, the people who are living in poverty who have to take out more Tesserae have a significantly higher chance of having their name drawn. That, in my mind, means that it is rigged. There are specific groups of people who have a significantly higher chance of getting their name drawn, and a lot of this is driven by class and privilege. And so my grander point with all of this is that there is room for nuance, and there is room for different subjective opinions about things when analyzing fiction, or just any form of literature. Because while there are some hard, fast rules in literature, a lot of it is subjective. We are all going to have completely different perspectives of reading this book, and we all have different strengths and weaknesses when it comes to reading comprehension. And so that's why I love having these discussions and debates on here, because even when someone disagrees with me on something, I always walk away from the conversation learning something new that I never would have considered before. This just reminded me that up until Katniss yelled Prim's name in the Capitol Square right before the bomb went off, everyone in District 13 up to that moment, including Prim, thought Katniss was dead. Like Prim thought her sister was dead. And then the last thing she heard before she died was the sister she thought was dead yelling her name. Oh my god. The idea of Prim volunteering to go onto the front lines, though, is a really interesting concept. I've never considered that before. As far as I know, your basic training for the military in District 13 would begin when you were about Prim's age, with formal service beginning when you were 18. I could be wrong about that. I feel like I read that. But it's interesting and really sad to think about the possibility that Prim saw that her sister was dead and asked herself, in her situation, what Katniss would do. And if there's one thing that Katniss is really good at, it's breaking the rules in order to do what is right and just. I can't say this is a theory I necessarily subscribe to, but I do feel like it would have added another layer of irony to Prim's death. This entire thing had been pushed into motion because of Katniss volunteering for her, only for her demise to come from her doing the same thing for Katniss. Whenever I mention the rigged reaping theory, that always ruffles some feathers. People tell me that I'm making Katniss into a chosen one, and I have to ask you where you are getting that. How are you drawing that conclusion? Katniss being a chosen one and the Hunger Games reapings being rigged are two completely different theories, and one of them makes a lot more sense. Yes, there are ways that the reapings could have been rigged to target Katniss, which would have made her a chosen one. But I think that even the way they are described in the books makes them rigged. And I swear to God, 90% of the people who don't subscribe to my theory just stop watching 10 seconds in because they think it's going to be idiotic or something. If Tesserae exists as described, and for every Tesserae you take out, your name is put into the bowl more times, is that not rigging? Like, is that not being rigged? Is that not putting a specific demographic of people at a significantly higher disadvantage? Like, when I say that they are rigged, I mean that they are described as being rigged. But I also know that Katniss is a narrator with extremely limited information. They are at the liberty of the Capitol to figure out how things run. And these are people that do not even have the verbiage to describe various disabilities and mental health crises and illnesses. The Capitol could tell them anything, and it is up to the discernment of the individual to decide whether it's real or not real. Even if the games are something that President Snow sees as super sacred or something like that, he has shown time and time again that he is willing to bend the rules for his own benefit. He was willing to put his items in the snake tank to ensure Lucy Gray wouldn't be attacked. He was willing to go outside of the district boundaries of 12. He had no qualms about putting on a happy face for Sejanus and pretending to be his friend, even though he absolutely detested him. So when I think about the things that he was already okay with bending the rules to, in relation to Tesserae and the way that the Hunger Games are used as a form of entertainment and distraction, coupled with his deep-seated need for control over absolutely everything, and the fact that he loathed people from the districts. He hated them, and he thought they were all unintelligent and uncivilized. He most certainly didn't care enough about them to choose and target a specific person from every single district. But nothing is going to convince me that they don't at least tweak how the reaping process is conducted year after year in order to make for the most entertaining possible Hunger Games. And again, dude, how many times am I going to have to specify this? I don't think that means that they target a specific person. I don't think Katniss is a chosen one. I don't think Prim is a chosen one. I don't think the Everdeens are chosen people. Like, one of the big points of the story is that Katniss was just some kid who wanted to save her sister. I don't think my belief about the reapings being rigged changes that at all. I don't think she was anywhere near anybody's brain cells when they started implementing this. I think it was just always that way. And I am like frustrating myself because I can already see the people who are telling me that I think Katniss is a chosen one, and it's making me mad already. So don't tell me that I think Katniss is a chosen one.
If we have ever been friends, and within the last 2 days you've posted something online saying that we can disagree and still be friends, I want you to know that that's not true. First of all, because I've ended friendships over far less than politics, I've ended friendships over One Direction. Also, if the number one thing you are worried about after an election is your friends getting mad at you, it means you haven't even taken a second to consider the feelings of people you call your friends who are scared. And it tells me a lot about the people you spend time with, because you're not around people who are scared about this. The world I grew up in of Christian nationality and evangelism is the world that Project 2025 promises. I grew up in a high-demand nationalistic evangelical religion. I saw what Project 2025 looks like. I got out of that in 2021, and it's not just that I don't want to go back into it, because I know that I survived. I'm still here. A lot of BIPOC, trans, and queer people are not still here anymore. Like, please have some perspective and understand that when you say we can disagree and still be friends, No, we cannot. I don't want to be friends with someone who thinks the way I exist is a sin. I don't want to be friends with someone who is celebrating in the wake of millions of people's distress. I don't want to be friends with someone who claims that their politics aren't personal and then turns around and votes Republican just because they think that's the Christian thing to do. And don't try and tell me that you don't do the exact same thing, because I don't see any of you befriending any blue-haired liberals with pronouns. And this isn't to say people can't disagree with each other and still be friends. I disagree with my friends on things every fucking day. But the things my friends and I disagree on are like whether or not the Hunger Games reapings were rigged, or whether or not Finnick Odair was a career. And not, which humans should and shouldn't have rights. We don't have to agree on everything. What matters is that Jesus loved everyone. Actually, he didn't love everyone. He, pretty famously hated Pharisees, hypocrites, and people who hindered children from coming to him. That's a pretty significant part of the narrative. Jesus cursed hypocrites 7 times. He cursed them. If you are a hypocrite, Jesus put a curse on you thousands of years ago. He fucking hates you. But you know who else Jesus fucking hated? People who used his name to make a profit. I swear to God, so much of the 4 Gospels is just Jesus being like, guys, I said prophet, not profit. Who else did Jesus hate? Oh yeah, people who were indifferent towards human need. Jesus was a Palestinian man, murdered by cops. And you guys think he would like what's going on right now? No! Jesus fucking hates you, dude! So, Jesus, the son of an unwed teen mother who was seeking political asylum, who stressed the importance of caring for the sick and the needy, who was murdered by keepers of the law, who was Palestinian. Jesus, who was single until the time of his death and never had a traditional family. Jesus, who went out of his way not to befriend religious leaders because he hated them. Jesus, whose first miracle was getting everybody drunk at a party. Jesus, who opened his arms and said, let the little children come to me. Jesus, who said a poor person who gives everything they have is way better of a person than a rich person who gives the same amount. Jesus, the same person that went out of his way to hang out with all of the most ostracized people in society. Jesus, who fed everyone for free and gave everyone free universal health care. Jesus, who didn't even know what America was because it wasn't a thing. Please, explain to me like I'm 5 why voting Republican is the Christian thing to do. He doesn't even know what America is. He wasn't here. The overwhelming majority of people who say they're Christians and believe in the Bible do not actually read it and have never read it cover to cover. And even if they did, they don't have a full scope of what the Bible is because there's so many translations. I'm not a Christian anymore, but I was a Christian for 21 years, so I'm still a pretty massive Bible nerd. And I know I still have a very limited understanding of what exists in the Bible because I've only read English translations of it. But even within those translations, the messages you get from reading the King James Version, the NIV version, the Message, are all going to be a lot different. And within those translations, the Bible is made up of tons of different kinds of text, and they all need to be analyzed completely differently. A lot of the Bible is poetry with really heavy use of metaphor and songs. Like a lot of biblical scholars will tell you that the story of Adam and Eve and the creation story was not a historical account. It was a story meant to help people understand things that they didn't understand. A lot of the parts of the Bible are historical documents that have to do with a political landscape that we no longer live in. Like Paul did not write his letters for millions of people to read in the Bible one day. He wrote those letters for a very specific group of people that he wanted to communicate a message to. There's also an Old and a New Testament, and there's 400 years between those testaments, and there's a lot of stuff in the Old Testament that Jesus comes out in the New Testament and was like, hey, never mind. Like, I know everything I need to know about your biblical knowledge if you start citing Levitical laws to me to defend your stance on something. The one thing that I don't ever really remember being told to exercise while reading the Bible was critical thinking, because we were not ever supposed to question anything about the Bible, ever, because it is God's perfect word. We're told to look at the context coming before and after a Bible verse we were citing, but that was literally it. Because if you asked one too many questions, everything would unravel extremely quickly. A lot of questions were considered dangerous and taboo because asking them would open doors for the devil to plant seeds of doubt in your mind. And those were the exact words that were used. The devil will plant seeds of doubt in your mind. All I have to say is, sounds like the devil had really good reading comprehension and listened to the parable about the mustard seed. Nothing will get you to deconstruct faster than actually reading the Bible all the way through. And that doesn't just mean reading the words of the Bible all the way through, because the first time I read the Bible all the way through, I was like a teenager. The problem was that I wasn't exercising my reading comprehension skills when I read it because I was told not to. From the day I and everyone else in my congregation stepped foot through the church doors for the first time, we were told that we could not be trusted. Any organic thought of free will that came into our head, we could not trust because we were inherently sinful and we were sheep and we needed to be led by God. If we came across something in the Bible that we disagreed with, that was an us problem, and we needed to understand why we didn't agree with it and then unpack that and get over it. Particularly when it came to things regarding women and gay people. In the church I grew up in, women were not allowed to be pastors and preach from the pulpit. My mom is a pastor. She has been a pastor since I was born. She wasn't allowed to call herself a pastor until I was a teenager. And the silliest part of it all is that the reason she was allowed to call herself a pastor was because they were like, oh, maybe we should interpret this biblical text a little bit differently. Don't get us wrong. The only reason we're making this change is because we felt God prompting us to. Definitely not because of societal pressure. And definitely not because the congregation is not a fan of how we treat women. When the church congregation is not educated on what the Bible is actually about and how it can be interpreted, when they're told that they cannot trust themselves, that they are sheep, and that all of the religious leaders are people who have been specifically appointed by God, they're not given the skills to question whether or not that's actually true, then the religious leaders are able to weaponize that religious text against the congregation. They are able to maintain that power over them, which is why knowledge is power, and so is reading comprehension. And this is why, in a totally non-religious way, I would encourage people to read the Bible, and I would encourage people to read it in various translations, because there's an entire population in the United States that's okay with cherry-picking specific parts of this text and weaponizing it against other people. A lot of those people don't even know what text they're referencing and don't even know the history of it, because once you start questioning it, it doesn't make sense. The Bible cannot be the flawless book Christians claim it to be, because by nature, humans are flawed, and humans are the ones who translated that text. It has hundreds of authors. It was written over hundreds of years. Not even every book in the Bible was canonized into what we now know as the Bible with 66 books. A lot of people are now participating in a totally bastardized version of this religion that's nothing like what it once was. But they would never know that that's what they're doing because they've never read the fucking book.
I've said this before, but we do not live in the Hunger Games, and you are not Katniss Everdeen. That's because the Hunger Games was written about things that have already happened. We are not approaching dystopia. We have been living in it for a very long time. And you, as a white lady in liberal Oregon, I'm saying this as a white lady in liberal Oregon, are not going to be the face of the rebellion. And I'm not saying this to burst the bubble of anybody who's wanted to come on here in the last few days in Katniss Everdeen cosplay and say, if we burn, you burn with us. What I am saying is that we as white ladies in liberal Oregon are probably not the ones who should be saying that. We should not be centering ourselves in a conversation about an issue that is going to disproportionately and has disproportionately affected women of color. But I also think it's kind of defeatist. Right now, compared to a lot of other places in the world, we have significantly more freedoms. We are still able to use our words. We are still able to write and read. We are still able to sing. I'm not saying this to try and say that things aren't bad right now, because they are. I'm saying this because things could get a hell of a lot worse than they are right now. The vast majority of us are not going to be the Katniss Everdeens of the world. That isn't a bad thing, because for every Katniss Everdeen, there's also a Match. There's also a Peeta. There's also a Greasy Say.
So much of the fates of the characters in the Hunger Games hinge on mutual aid and community, which is what we need to be doing for each other right now.